Hello there, and welcome to The Sleepy Scholar. Tonight's journey takes us into the quiet, breathing world of plants. We will drift through ancient forests and across sunlit meadows, exploring the silent lives that unfold all around us. The story of plants is the story of life itself, written in shades of green, in the patient turn of a leaf toward the sun, and in the slow, steady work of roots anchoring our world. They are the Earth's first breath, the providers of the very air we inhale, and the architects of the landscapes that cradle our own existence. This is a world of silent, profound intelligence. It is a kingdom of chemists, engineers, and survivors, where battles are fought not with speed, but with patience, and where communication happens in a language of scent and shadow. As we move through this gentle history, we will find that these seemingly simple forms are vast, complex, and woven into the fabric of time. They are the quiet witnesses to the passing of ages, holding the memory of sunlight in their very structure. If you enjoy these quiet explorations, consider subscribing so you can easily return here whenever you need to rest. For now, get comfortable. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let's begin. The largest known living organism on Earth by mass is a colony of quaking aspen trees named Pando. Tucked away in the mountains of Utah, Pando appears to be a vast forest of individual trees, but it is, in reality, a single ancient entity connected by a massive underground root system. This colossal being is estimated to cover over 106 acres, or about 43 hectares, and is believed to weigh a staggering 13 million pounds, or nearly 6 million kilograms. Every slender white trunk reaching for the sky is a genetic clone, a shoot sent up from the same parent root structure. This organism has been patiently cloning itself for thousands of years. Some estimates once suggested it could be over 80,000 years old, but more recent work points instead to an age of several thousand to perhaps around 14,000 years, and its true age remains uncertain. Pando is a living testament to resilience, a quiet giant that has weathered millennia, demonstrating that the greatest strength is often found in connection, in the shared life flowing unseen beneath the surface. The Titan arum, or corpse flower, produces one of the largest and most unsettling blooms in the plant kingdom. This resident of the rainforests of Sumatra, Indonesia, has a flowering structure that can reach over 10 feet in height, or about 3 meters. Its infamous name comes not from its appearance, but from its perfume, a powerful and complex odor designed to smell exactly like rotting flesh. This scent is not a mistake, but a brilliant, if unsettling, survival strategy. The flower only blooms for a day or two, and in this short window, it must attract its specific pollinators, carrion beetles and flesh flies, insects drawn to the promise of decay. The deep maroon, flesh-like color of its spathe reinforces the illusion, a masterpiece of mimicry that ensures its genetic future by appealing to the most primal of instincts. The Venus flytrap hunts its prey using a rapid, mechanical-like motion. This carnivorous plant, native only to the subtropical wetlands of North and South Carolina, has evolved one of the most dramatic traps in nature. Its leaves, hinged at the center, are lined with stiff bristles and tiny trigger hairs. For the trap to snap shut, an insect must touch 2 different trigger hairs, or the same hair twice in quick succession, within about 20 seconds. This clever mechanism prevents the plant from wasting energy on false alarms like raindrops or falling debris. Once triggered, an electrical signal travels through the leaf, causing the lobes to snap shut in less than 1/10 of a second. The plant then secretes digestive enzymes to absorb the nutrients, a slow, deliberate process that allows it to thrive in the nutrient-poor soil it calls home. Bamboo holds the record as the fastest growing plant on Earth, a living expression of speed and potential. While most plants grow at a steady, almost imperceptible pace, some species of bamboo can astonishingly grow up to 35 inches or nearly 91 centimeters in a single 24-hour period. This is a rate so fast it can almost be witnessed in real time. Unlike trees, bamboo culms or stems emerge from the ground at their full diameter and rocket to their full height in just a few months. They do not thicken or grow taller over the years. This incredible growth is fueled by a vast underground network of rhizomes, which store enormous amounts of energy. The bamboo grove is a community, sending up new shoots in a coordinated burst of life, a silent green explosion reaching toward the sun. The ginkgo biloba tree is often called a living fossil, as it is one of the oldest tree species still in existence. This single species has no close living relatives and represents a lineage that has survived for over 270 million years, long before the dinosaurs faded from the world. Ginkgo trees were contemporaries of ancient ferns and cycads, and they have endured ice ages, climate shifts, and continental drift. Individual trees are themselves symbols of endurance, capable of living for over 1,000 years, with some specimens in Asia believed to be much older. Their distinctive fan-shaped leaves, which turn a brilliant gold in the autumn, are a design that has proven successful for eons. To stand beneath a ginkgo is to stand in the presence of a true survivor, a direct link to the deep, ancient past of our planet. The giant saguaro cactus is a master of survival, designed to endure the intense heat and drought of the Sonoran Desert. These majestic plants, which can grow to be over 40 feet tall, or 12 meters, are essentially living water towers. Their pleated accordion-like trunks are a marvel of biological engineering. During the rare desert downpours, the pleats expand, allowing the cactus to soak up and store hundreds of gallons of water. A fully hydrated saguaro can weigh several tons, with the vast majority of that weight being water. This internal reservoir allows the cactus to survive for months or even years without rain, slowly drawing on its stored moisture. The saguaro's great size and patient endurance make it a symbol of the desert, a towering, silent guardian of the arid landscape. Plants are not the solitary, silent beings they appear to be. They are connected by a vast underground network of fungal threads. This intricate web, often called the wood wide web, is a symbiotic relationship between plant roots and mycorrhizal fungi. The fungi are skilled miners, breaking down minerals in the soil and absorbing water far more efficiently than roots alone, which they trade with the plant in exchange for sugars created through photosynthesis. But this network does more than just trade. It allows trees to communicate and share resources. Through this fungal bridge, mature mother trees can send nutrients to shaded seedlings, and plants under attack by insects can send chemical warning signals to their neighbors. The forest floor is alive with a quiet, cooperative intelligence, a hidden world of connection. The gentle, predictable movement of a young sunflower following the sun across the sky is a phenomenon known as heliotropism. This behavior is a beautiful dance between the plant and its source of life, driven by an internal circadian rhythm. During the day, the young sunflower's head, or flower bud, tracks the sun from east to west, maximizing its exposure to light for photosynthesis. At night, in the darkness, the head slowly swings back to the east, patiently awaiting the dawn. This movement is controlled by specialized motor cells in the stem, just below the head, which elongate or shrink in response to the light cues. As the sunflower matures and its large, heavy flower fully blooms, this movement ceases. It settles into a final position, most often facing east, to greet the morning sun and attract the first pollinators of the day. The Mimosa pudica, or sensitive plant, is one of the most responsive organisms in the plant kingdom, recoiling from the slightest touch. Its delicate, fern-like leaves are a study in rapid movement. When touched, shaken, or even exposed to a sudden burst of heat, the leaflets fold inward and the entire leaf stalk droops, as if shrinking from the world. This dramatic defense mechanism, known as seismonasty, is controlled by a sudden change in water pressure. At the base of each leaf and leaflet are structures called pulvini. When triggered, these structures rapidly expel water from their cells, causing them to collapse and fold the leaf. This movement is thought to deter herbivores by making the plant appear smaller and less appealing, or by dislodging small insects. It is a quiet, immediate, and visible expression of the plant's awareness of its surroundings. In the gravel plains of the Namib Desert, one of the driest places on Earth, lives a plant that seems to defy all convention, the Welwitschia mirabilis. This remarkable plant is a living paradox, a survivor from an ancient lineage. It consists of a short, thick, woody stem and only 2 leaves, and that is all it will ever produce in its entire life. These 2 leaves, however, grow continuously from their base for the plant's entire lifespan, which can be extraordinary, with some individuals estimated to be over 1,500 years old. Over centuries of wind and sand, the leaves become tattered and split, often giving the appearance of many leaves. The Welwitschia survives by capturing moisture from the coastal fog that rolls in from the Atlantic, its sprawling, frayed leaves acting as a net to catch the precious water, funneling it down to its deep taproot. The largest single flower in the world, Rafflesia arnoldi, is a biological marvel that lives as a phantom for most of its life. Found in the rainforests of Indonesia, this plant is a complete parasite, with no visible leaves, stem, or roots of its own. It exists entirely as thread-like filaments that invade a specific vine, the tetrastigma. For years, it remains hidden, drawing all its nutrients from its host. Then, unpredictably, a large, cabbage-like bud erupts from the vine's bark. This bud swells for months before finally opening into an enormous, fleshy flower that can be over 3 feet across, or about 1 meter, and weigh up to 15 pounds, or 7 kilograms like the Titan arum. It emits the odor of rotting meat to attract carrion flies for pollination, a brief, spectacular, and odorous appearance before it withers away. There is a cognitive bias in humans known as plant blindness, a tendency to overlook the plants that form the very foundation of our world. In a bustling landscape, our attention is instinctively drawn to things that move, like animals or other people, while the stationary, green world of plants often fades into a static background. This oversight means we often fail to recognize the profound importance, complexity, and intelligence of plant life. Plants are not passive scenery. They are active, dynamic organisms. They compete for resources, communicate with each other, defend themselves from predators, and meticulously shape their environment. They are the planet's primary producers, the silent chemists who craft the air we breathe and the food that sustains all other life. Recognizing this quiet, green world is the first step towards seeing the full, interconnected story of life. Photosynthesis is the silent, life-giving miracle performed by plants, a chemical process that powers nearly all life on Earth. It is the art of turning sunlight into sustenance. Plants, algae, and some bacteria act as the planet's alchemists, capturing the energy of a sunbeam and using it to transform simple ingredients, water from the soil and carbon dioxide from the air, into glucose, a sugar that fuels their growth. This process takes place inside specialized structures called chloroplasts, which are filled with the green pigment chlorophyll that gives plants their color. As a byproduct of this elegant reaction, the plant releases oxygen, the very gas that animals, including humans, must breathe to survive. Every breath we take is a gift from the green world, a reminder of our deep dependency on this quiet, foundational process. The rings inside a tree's trunk are a living chronicle of its life and the world it has inhabited. This history, written in wood, is known as dendrochronology. Each year, a tree adds a new layer of growth just beneath its bark, a wide ring in a warm, wet year, and a narrow, dense ring in a cold, dry year. This pattern of thick and thin bands creates a unique fingerprint of time. By looking at a cross-section of a trunk, one can read the story of past droughts, long winters, and even sudden events like forest fires, which leave behind dark scars in the wood. Scientists can match the ring patterns of very old trees, like the ancient bristlecone pines, to create a continuous timeline stretching back thousands of years. A patient, wooden record of the Earth's changing climate. A seed is a vessel of suspended time, a masterpiece of patience and potential. Inside its protective coat, a plant embryo waits in a state of deep dormancy, sometimes for just a few weeks, and sometimes for millennia. This dormancy is a crucial survival strategy, a pause in life that ensures the tiny plant does not begin its journey until the conditions are precisely right. The seed waits for the perfect alignment of signals, the right amount of water, the correct temperature, or even the nourishing light of the sun. Some seeds require the intense heat of a forest fire to crack their tough exteriors, while others must pass through the digestive tract of an animal. This ability to wait, to hold life in absolute stillness, allows plants to endure impossible hardships and to be the first pioneers to return after a catastrophe. In the harsh, windswept high mountains of the American West, the Great Basin bristlecone pines stand as the planet's most ancient individual beings. These gnarled, weathered trees are masters of longevity. With the oldest known living specimen, named Methuselah, being over 4,850 years old, they live in an environment of extreme cold, high winds, and poor soil, a place where little else can survive. Their secret to a long life lies in their slowness. They grow at a glacial pace, adding only a fraction of an inch to their girth each year. Their wood is incredibly dense and resinous, making it highly resistant to insects, rot, and disease. They are the ultimate endurance artists, living clocks that have patiently watched the stars turn and human civilizations rise and fall from their silent, rocky perches. Mangrove forests thrive in the liminal space where land and sea dissolve into one another, a feat made possible by their remarkable adaptations to salt. Growing in coastal saltwater or brackish water is a challenge that would kill most other plants, but mangroves have evolved unique solutions. Some species can excrete salt through special glands in their leaves, leaving visible salt crystals behind. Others are masters of exclusion, filtering out the salt at the root level before it ever enters their systems. Perhaps most striking are their roots. In the thick, oxygen-poor mud, mangroves send up breathing roots, known as pneumatophores. These structures stick up out of the mud and water like small wooden snorkels, covered in tiny pores that allow the roots to breathe air directly from the atmosphere, a testament to life's ability to find a way even in the most challenging of worlds. In the high, cold landscapes of the Arctic tundra and lofty alpine mountains, Arctic alpine plants demonstrate profound resilience. These plants are small, a necessary adaptation to a world defined by freezing temperatures, thin soil, and relentless drying winds. They grow close to the ground, often in dense cushions or mats, a form that helps them trap heat and conserve moisture. Many are covered in a dense layer of fine, silvery hairs, which act like a tiny fur coat to insulate them and reflect harsh sunlight. They must live their entire lives on an accelerated schedule. In the short, intense burst of the polar summer, they race to flower, produce seeds, and store energy for the long, dark winter ahead. Their bright, sudden blooms are a fleeting, vibrant celebration of life in one of the planet's most unforgiving environments. The most important plant on Earth may be one you have never seen, the microscopic marine organism known as phytoplankton. These tiny single-celled plants and algae drift through the sunlit upper layers of all the world's oceans, a vast, invisible, floating meadow. Though they are minuscule individually, their collective impact is monumental. Through photosynthesis, this global cloud of phytoplankton produces more than half of the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. Every other breath you take is a gift from the sea, thanks to these simple, ancient life forms. They are also the foundational base of the entire marine food web, the primary food source for everything from tiny zooplankton to colossal whales. They are the quiet, unsung lungs of the planet, and the starting point for the ocean's great symphony of life. Carnivorous pitcher plants have evolved a simple yet deadly passive trap to supplement their diet in nutrient-poor soils. Unlike the active snap of a Venus flytrap, the pitcher plant relies on a pitfall. Its leaves are modified into a deep, vase-like cavity, a pitcher that holds a pool of digestive enzymes or rainwater. These pitchers are often brightly colored and may secrete nectar around the rim, an attractive invitation to insects like ants and flies. The rim itself, however, is often slippery, and the inner walls are steep and lined with downward pointing hairs, making escape impossible. The exhausted insect eventually falls into the liquid below, where it drowns and is slowly dissolved, providing the plant with the essential nitrogen and phosphorus that its roots cannot find in the boggy ground it calls home. The orchid family demonstrates an astonishing and beautiful level of deception to achieve pollination. While many flowers offer a simple, honest reward of sweet nectar, the world of orchids is one of intricate mimicry and illusion. Some, like the bee orchid, have evolved flowers that perfectly mimic the appearance and even the scent of a female bee. The hopeful male bee attempts to mate with the flower, getting a packet of pollen attached to his body in the process. When he is tricked again by another orchid, he unknowingly transfers the pollen. Other orchids mimic the smell of rotting food to attract flies, or create complex, passive traps that force an insect to follow a very specific path to escape. This is not conscious thought, but the result of a long evolutionary dance, a patient refinement of a successful trick, binding plant and animal together in a story of beautiful deceit. The coconut is a master navigator, a seed designed to conquer the world by traveling on ocean currents. The coconut palm is a symbol of tropical shores, but its presence on remote, isolated islands was a long-standing mystery. The answer is that the seed carried itself. The coconut is not a nut. It is a buoyant, one-seeded fruit. Its entire structure is a personal flotation device. The tough outer layer is waterproof, and the thick, fibrous husk, or coir, is buoyant, allowing it to float for months. Inside this, the hard shell protects the precious seed and its supply of nourishing milk and meat. This design allows the coconut to drift for thousands of miles or thousands of kilometers across the open ocean. When it finally washes ashore on a distant beach, it has all the water and nutrients it needs to sprout and colonize a new land. Mosses are ancient, humble plants that thrive by living a life without true roots. Long before the world was shaded by great forests, mosses were among the very first plants to claim the land, a living carpet that softens the edges of rock and wood. Unlike the vascular plants that would come later, they lack the complex internal plumbing to pull water from deep in the earth. Instead, they are masters of absorption. Their tiny, simple leaves are designed to capture water and nutrients directly from the air, from the rain and mist that washes over them. They anchor themselves with simple threads called rhizoids, but they drink with their whole bodies. This is why they cluster together in dense, plush mats, creating a collective sponge that holds moisture for the whole community. They are the Earth's green skin, a testament to strength found in softness and persistence. Ferns are relics of an ancient world, reproducing not with flowers or seeds, but with microscopic spores. These plants defined the landscape of the Carboniferous period, forming vast, swampy forests hundreds of millions of years ago. The coal and oil that power our modern world are, in many ways, the captured sunlight of these ancient fern empires. Their method of reproduction remains a window into that deep past. A fern releases spores, which are tiny, single cells. If a spore lands in a moist place, it does not grow into a fern. It grows into a tiny, heart-shaped plantlet called a gametophyte, a separate, intermediate generation. This tiny plantlet must then produce reproductive cells that rely on a film of water, even a drop of dew, to swim and find each other. Only then can a new, familiar fern begin to grow, a life in two parts. Plants engage in a silent, chemical warfare to defend themselves from attackers. They are not passive victims. They are sophisticated chemists. When a leaf is chewed by a caterpillar, the plant may not be able to run, but it can fight back. It begins to produce and flood its leaves with defensive compounds. Some, like tannins in oak leaves, make the leaf bitter and indigestible. Others, like the caffeine in a coffee bean or the nicotine in a tobacco leaf, are potent neurotoxins that can paralyze or kill the insect. This chemical response is not only for defense, but also for communication. When under attack, many plants release specific volatile chemicals into the air, a perfume of fear that signals to nearby plants to start preparing their own chemical defenses before the enemy even arrives. Plants have a profound and unerring sense of gravity, a process known as gravitropism. No matter how a seed lands in the soil, even if it is planted upside down, it will orient itself correctly. The young shoot will always bend and grow upward, reaching for the sun, while the young root will always turn and grow downward, seeking water and stability in the earth. This sense is controlled by specialized cells, particularly in the root tips, which contain tiny, dense, starch-filled structures called statoliths. These structures are like small weights that settle at the lowest point of the cell, signaling to the plant which way is down. The plant then distributes growth hormones unevenly, causing the root to curve downward and the stem to curve upward, a simple, perfect, and vital orientation to the world. Plants can see the world around them in ways that are invisible to us, especially the color and quality of light. They possess special light-sensitive proteins, most notably a pigment called phytochrome. This pigment acts as a biological switch, allowing a plant to sense the difference between red light and far red light. During the day, sunlight is rich in red light, which activates phytochrome. In the shade of another plant, however, most of the red light is absorbed by the canopy above, leaving a shadow rich in far red light, which deactivates it. This shift tells the plant that it is being overshadowed. In response, the plant will dedicate its energy to growing taller, stretching rapidly toward the unfiltered sun. It is a silent, chemical race for the light, all guided by the plant's ability to see the color of the shadows. The corn we know today, with its large cobs and abundant kernels, is a human invention, domesticated from a wild grass called teosinte. Ancient teosinte looks almost nothing like modern corn. It has only a handful of kernels, each one locked inside a hard, inedible casing. Around 9,000 years ago, in what is now Mexico, ancient farmers began to save and plant the seeds from the most promising and perhaps mutant teosinte plants. Over thousands of years of this patient, selective breeding, they guided its evolution. They favored plants with more kernels, softer kernels, and kernels that stayed attached to the cob instead of scattering. This slow, deliberate partnership between human and plant transformed a wild, scrubby grass into one of the most important staple crops that feeds the entire world, a testament to a long and fruitful collaboration. The bark of the willow tree contains a powerful compound that forms the basis of one of our most common medicines. For thousands of years, ancient civilizations, from the Egyptians to the Greeks, knew that chewing on willow bark or drinking its tea could relieve pain and reduce fevers. They did not know why, only that this riverside tree offered this gentle relief. The secret, which science would later uncover, is a chemical called salicin. In the 19th century, chemists isolated this compound and eventually synthesized it into acetyl salicylic acid, a more stomach-friendly version we now know as aspirin. The plant's original purpose for the salicin is likely as a defensive chemical, to protect it from insects and pathogens. But in that act of self-protection, the willow was patiently holding a key to human comfort, waiting centuries for us to find it. The night-blooming cereus is a queen of the desert night, a cactus that reserves its spectacular beauty for the darkness. For most of the year, this plant is a tangle of unremarkable, gangly stems, often climbing on other desert shrubs. But for 1 or 2 nights a year, typically in midsummer, it undergoes a magical transformation. Under the cover of darkness, its large, tightly wound buds begin to unfurl, opening into magnificent, dinner plate-sized white flowers. These blooms release an intoxicating sweet perfume into the cool night air. This entire display is not for humans, but for its specific pollinator, the nocturnal sphinx moth. The bright white of the petals reflects the moonlight, and the heavy scent acts as a beacon, guiding the moths. By sunrise, the show is over. The flowers wilt, their brief, glorious duty complete. Epiphytes, commonly known as air plants, are plants that have evolved to live their entire lives without touching the ground. These remarkable survivors, which include many orchids, bromeliads like tillandsia, and some ferns, make their homes on the branches and trunks of other trees. They are not parasites. They do not steal nutrients from their host. They simply use the tree as a platform, a place to live high up in the canopy, closer to the sunlight. They have developed extraordinary ways to capture everything they need from the air. Their leaves are often covered in specialized scales or trichomes, which are incredibly efficient at absorbing moisture from rain, mist, and even high humidity. They are the gentle colonists of the treetops, creating entire complex ecosystems far above the forest floor. The Victoria amazonica, or giant water lily, commands the quiet Amazonian backwaters with its enormous floating leaves. These leaves, or pads, can grow to be over 10 feet in diameter, or about 3 meters, and are a marvel of natural engineering. The underside of the pad is a complex, ribbed structure, like a cathedral ceiling, which traps air and gives the leaf its incredible buoyancy. This structure is so strong that a single leaf can easily support the weight of a small child. The edges of the pads are turned up, like a tray, to prevent water from washing over the surface and to gently push aside competing plants. Even its flowers are dramatic, blooming white one night to attract beetles, then trapping them and turning pink by the second night. A brief, beautiful, and tactical display. The parasitic plant, known as dodder, is a leafless, golden vine that hunts its prey by scent. Dodder seeds sprout from the ground like any other plant, but they have a very limited time to find a host. The young, slender vine has no leaves and cannot photosynthesize, so it only has a few days of energy stored in its seed. It swings its head in the air in a circular motion, tasting the chemical signals, or volatile organic compounds, released by other plants. It can distinguish between a tomato plant and a wheat plant, and when it senses a preferred host, it grows directly toward it. Upon making contact, the dodder quickly wraps itself around the victim's stem and sinks in specialized feeding tubes called haustoria, tapping directly into the host's vascular system. It leaves its roots behind, living entirely off the lifeblood of another. The thorns, spines, and prickles that arm many plants are a stark, physical declaration of defense. These sharp structures are not merely decorative. They are armor. They are modified leaves, branches, or even parts of the bark, evolved for the specific purpose of deterring hungry herbivores. Spines, like those on a cactus, are modified leaves that not only protect the plant, but also reduce water loss. Thorns, like those on a hawthorn tree, are modified branches, and prickles, like those on a rose, are simply sharp outgrowths of the stem skin. This armor makes the plant a difficult, painful, and unappealing meal, forcing animals to look elsewhere for their food. It is a simple, effective, and silent warning, a do not touch sign written in the language of sharp, pointed resistance. The tumbleweed is a rolling, wandering skeleton, a plant that has mastered the art of dispersing its seeds after its life is over. These plants, most famously the Russian thistle, are not native to the American West, but are now a powerful symbol of its vast open plains. The plant grows in a bushy, circular shape, and as its seeds mature, it begins to die, slowly detaching from its root. A special layer of cells at the base of the stem weakens, and the entire plant, now dry and light, is ready. A strong gust of wind is all it takes to break the plant free, sending it tumbling and rolling across the landscape. With every bounce and turn, it scatters thousands of its seeds, planting a new generation far and wide. It is a ghost on the wind, a traveler ensuring its legacy through motion. The smallest flowering plant in the world is Wolffia, also known as watermeal, a speck of green that floats on the surface of quiet ponds and marshes. These tiny plants are barely the size of a pinhead, looking more like small floating grains of cornmeal. A dozen of them could fit comfortably on the head of a pin. They have no roots, no stems, and no leaves in the conventional sense. The entire organism is a tiny, green, globular body that floats on the water. Yet, it is a true flowering plant, and it even produces the world's smallest fruit. It reproduces mostly by budding, a new plant simply branching off its parent, and it can do so at an incredible speed, doubling its population in just a couple of days. It is a reminder that in the world of plants, size is no measure of success or completeness. The resurrection plant, or Selaginella lepidophylla, is a desert-dwelling spike moss that embodies the illusion of death and the promise of return native to the Chihuahuan desert. This plant has a remarkable strategy for surviving extreme, prolonged drought. As the air dries, the plant does not die. It enters a state of profound dormancy. Its fronds curl inward, forming a tight, brown, lifeless-looking ball. It can remain in this state of suspended animation for months or even years, losing up to 97% of its moisture content. It waits, a brittle grey tangle. But when the rains finally return, a transformation occurs. Within a matter of hours, the plant begins to unfurl, its leaves rehydrating and turning a vibrant, living green, as if miraculously returning from the dead. It is a master of patience, waiting for the simple touch of water to be reborn. Cycads are rugged, ancient seed plants that are often mistaken for palms, but are more closely related to conifers. These plants are true survivors, another group of living fossils that have changed very little since they first appeared. They flourished during the Jurassic period, so much so that the era is sometimes called the Age of Cycads. It is almost certain that dinosaurs walked among and fed upon these very same forms. Unlike fast-growing palms, cycads are incredibly slow-growing, with some adding only an inch or a few centimeters of trunk height per year. They are dioecious, meaning plants are either male or female, and they produce enormous woody cones. To pollinate, many rely on specific insects like weevils, creating a partnership that has endured for millions of years. To see one is to see a living piece of ancient history. Many plants possess a form of memory, requiring the experience of a long winter chill before they will allow themselves to flower. For a plant, flowering too early in a full spring could mean a new frost that destroys the delicate blossoms and ruins the chance for reproduction. To prevent this, many plants that live in temperate climates have evolved a patient safety mechanism called vernalization. The plant essentially counts the cold days, using a molecular break that is only released after weeks or months of low temperatures. This ensures that the plant does not mistake a single warm day in January for the true arrival of spring. Only after the memory of winter is fulfilled and the days begin to lengthen will the plant commit its energy to flowering. It is a quiet intelligence, a wisdom that guarantees life, celebrates at the perfect, safest moment. The bark of the giant sequoia tree is a magnificent, fibrous armor that makes it nearly impervious to fire. These colossal trees, native to the western slopes of the Sierra Nevada mountains, are the most massive in the world, living for over 3,000 years. Their survival is intrinsically linked to an element that most other life fears: fire. A mature sequoia is protected by a layer of bark that can be up to 3 feet thick, or nearly 1 meter. This bark is soft, reddish-brown, and fibrous, and it does not contain flammable resins. When a low-intensity forest fire sweeps through, This bark acts as a near-perfect heat shield, charring on the outside but protecting the vital, living cambium layer within. In fact, the sequoia depends on these fires. The heat causes its tightly sealed cones to open, releasing thousands of seeds onto a forest floor, freshly cleared of competition. The leaves of a plant are covered in thousands of microscopic, mouth-like pores, known as stomata. These tiny openings are the gatekeepers of the plant's survival, regulating a constant, vital exchange with the atmosphere. They are the doors through which the plant inhales the carbon dioxide it needs for photosynthesis. At the same time, they are the exit through which the plant exhales oxygen, and crucially, water vapor. This release of water, called transpiration, is a double-edged sword. It pulls water up from the roots, cooling the leaf, but it also risks dehydration. To manage this, each stoma is flanked by two specialized guard cells. These cells can inflate or deflate with water, changing their shape to open the pore wide in the cool, moist morning, or seal it shut during the hot, dry afternoon. It is a silent, continuous balancing act, a microscopic breath that connects the plant to the sky. Lichens are not a single organism, but a profound and intimate partnership between two entirely different forms of life. They are a living testament to symbiosis, a composite organism formed from a fungus and a photosynthetic partner, which is usually a green alga or a cyanobacterium. The fungus provides the structure, the house, and the protection from the harsh elements, anchoring the lichen to a rock or a tree branch. In return, the alga or bacterium lives within this fungal shelter, performing photosynthesis and creating sugars, the food that sustains them both. This partnership is so successful that lichens can thrive in some of the most extreme environments on Earth, from the frozen Arctic tundra to sun-scorched desert rocks. They are the ultimate pioneers, the first to colonize bare stone, patiently and slowly creating the first hints of soil for all the life that will follow. Plants move and grow with intention, guided by a class of chemical messengers called hormones, chief among them being auxin. Auxin is the hormone of growth, the primary architect of a plant's shape, and it is responsible for the plant's determined reach for the light, a process called phototropism. Auxin is produced in the very tip of the growing shoot and is sensitive to light. It prefers the shade. As sunlight strikes one side of the stem, the auxin migrates to the shaded side. This accumulation of auxin on the dark side of the stem stimulates the cells there to elongate, to grow longer, faster than the cells on the sunny side. This uneven growth causes the stem to physically bend toward the light, a simple, elegant mechanism that ensures the plant maximizes its access to the energy it needs to live. The vast, quiet peat bogs of the northern world are created by the tireless, slow work of sphagnum moss. This humble plant is a powerful ecosystem engineer, capable of holding over 20 times its own weight in water. As the moss grows, its older parts die but do not truly decay. The bog water is cold, low in oxygen, and crucially, highly acidic, a condition the sphagnum itself creates by releasing hydrogen ions. This acidic, waterlogged environment is a near-perfect preservative. Instead of rotting away, the dead moss compacts over millennia, forming deep layers of peat. These bogs are immense carbon sinks, locking away more carbon from the atmosphere than all the world's forests combined. They are also living archives, preserving ancient pollen, and in some cases, the bodies of people who lived thousands of years ago, holding them in a quiet, moss-built time capsule. Some remarkable plants have the ability to clean contaminated soil, a process called phytoremediation. These plants are biological janitors, capable of absorbing, neutralizing, or safely sequestering heavy metals and other pollutants from the earth. Plants, like sunflowers for example, were famously used at the Chernobyl site. They are hyperaccumulators, meaning they can absorb high concentrations of toxic substances like lead, zinc, and radioactive elements and store them in their stems and leaves. When the plants have grown, they can be harvested and disposed of safely, effectively pulling the poisons out of the ground. It is a slow, green, and gentle technology, a way of healing the land that relies not on machines, but on the quiet, steady, and specialized chemistry of the plant kingdom. The soft, white fluff of a cotton ball is actually a magnificent seed dispersal mechanism. The cotton plant, a member of the mallow family, produces a seed pod, or boll, which contains its seeds. Each of these seeds is covered in a dense layer of long fibrous strands, the cotton fibers. These fibers are not just fluff, they are single, elongated plant cells, some of the longest in the plant kingdom. The evolutionary purpose of this fiber is to act as a sail, catching the wind to carry the seeds far from the parent plant. It may also help the seeds float on water or cling to the fur of passing animals. Humans, however, saw a different potential in these fibers. We saw thread, and through thousands of years of cultivation, we bred the plant to produce ever more of this useful fluff, transforming a simple seed sail into the fabric of our lives. Vines and climbing plants have a refined sense of touch, allowing them to find and cling to supports as they climb. This directional growth response to touch is called thigmotropism. When a vine's growing tip or a specialized tendril makes contact with a solid object, such as a fence or the trunk of another tree, the cells on the side touching the object are stimulated. This touch signal causes a shift in growth hormones, similar to the plant's response to light. The cells on the side not touching the object begin to elongate much faster, causing the tendril or stem to coil tightly around the support. This allows the plant to anchor itself as it races upward, a strategy for competing with trees, using their strength to gain its own place in the sun, without having to build a thick, supportive trunk of its own. The black walnut tree engages in a subtle form of territorial chemical warfare against its neighbors, a process known as allelopathy. This tree is not a passive resident of the forest. It actively shapes its environment to reduce competition. Its roots, leaves, and fruit husks all produce a chemical called juglone. This compound leaches into the soil, especially after a rain, creating a toxic zone around the tree's drip line. For many other plants, including tomatoes, apples, and pines, this juglone is a powerful growth inhibitor. It interferes with their ability to perform photosynthesis and breathe, causing them to wilt, yellow, and eventually die. The black walnut itself is, of course, immune to its own poison, a strategy that ensures it has ample access to the sunlight and water it needs to thrive, by creating a quiet, empty space around its feet. The phenomenon of a superbloom in a desert is a spectacular, fleeting testament to the patience of seeds. In places like Death Valley, one of the hottest and driest places in North America, the ground can appear barren for years on end, but the soil is not empty. It is a seed bank, densely packed with the dormant seeds of wildflowers waiting. These seeds are adapted to wait for a very specific and very rare set of conditions. A heavy, soaking rain must arrive at just the right time, usually in the autumn or winter, followed by a cool, damp period. If these conditions are met, the seeds awaken all at once. The desert floor, so long defined by rock and sand, erupts in a breathtaking, simultaneous carpet of color. A million lives bursting forth to bloom and set new seed before the return of the sun's oppressive heat. The brilliant reds and purples that appear in autumn leaves are not a process of decay, but a final protective act. The familiar yellows and oranges of autumn are always present in the leaf, pigments called carotenoids and xanthophylls, which are simply masked all summer by the overwhelming amount of green chlorophyll. As the days shorten and grow colder, the tree stops producing chlorophyll, and the green fades, revealing the gold and orange beneath. The vibrant reds, however, are different. These pigments, called anthocyanins, are actively produced by the tree in the autumn. Scientists believe this red pigment acts as a sunscreen, protecting the leaf from sun damage as the tree works to reabsorb the last valuable nutrients, especially nitrogen, back into its trunk before the leaf is finally allowed to fall. It is a final, beautiful act of self-preservation. The wood of the ancient bristlecone pine is so dense and resinous that it can remain intact for thousands of years after the tree has died. These mountain-dwelling trees live in a world of extreme adversity, and their slow growth creates wood that is almost like stone. When a bristlecone pine finally succumbs, not usually to disease or insects, but to the erosion of the very ground beneath it, it does not rot in the conventional sense. The dry, cold air and the wood's high resin content mean that decay is almost non-existent. The tree remains standing, a silver-grey, wind-sculpted skeleton known as a snag. These snags, and even fallen pieces of wood, are so well preserved that they have allowed scientists to build a continuous tree ring chronology stretching back over 10,000 years, reading a history written in wood that outlasted the life of the tree itself. The cacao tree, from which we get chocolate, has the unusual trait of growing its flowers and fruit directly from its main trunk and large branches. This phenomenon, known as cauliflory, is common in tropical trees. Instead of producing delicate blossoms at the tips of new leafy shoots, the cacao tree sprouts small pinkish-white flowers in dense clusters right from its oldest, thickest bark. This strategy is believed to be an adaptation for pollination by the specific insects that live in the dim, humid forest understory. Tiny, gnat-like midges, not bees or butterflies, are the primary pollinators, and they rarely fly high into the sunny canopy. By presenting its flowers on the trunk, the tree makes them accessible to these ground-dwelling insects. This leads to the striking sight of large, football-shaped cacao pods hanging directly from the bare wood, like decorations on the tree's main pillar. Succulent plants, like cacti and jade, survive in arid lands by breathing only at night, a clever chemical trick called crassulacean acid metabolism. For most plants, opening their stomata, or leaf pores, during the day to take in carbon dioxide means losing a massive amount of water to the hot, dry air. Succulents cannot afford this loss, so they keep their pores sealed tight all day long. Then, in the coolness of the night, they open them. They inhale carbon dioxide, and using special enzymes, they fix it into an organic acid, which they store in their cells until morning. When the sun rises, they close their pores again. They then use the sunlight's energy to release the stored carbon dioxide from the acid and perform photosynthesis internally, all while their doors are safely shut. It is a patient, two-stage breath, perfectly timed to the desert's rhythm. The tea plant, Camellia sinensis, is responsible for nearly all the non-herbal tea in the world, from green tea to black tea. The difference between these teas lies not in the plant, but in the chemistry of the leaf after it is picked. The leaves of this evergreen shrub are rich in compounds called catechins and enzymes. To make green tea, the leaves are quickly heated, either by steaming or pan firing, immediately after picking. This heat deactivates the enzymes, preventing oxidation and preserving the leaf's green color and fresh grassy flavor. To make black tea, however, the leaves are deliberately crushed or rolled and then left to oxidize. The enzymes are allowed to work, turning the leaves a deep brown and transforming the catechins into more complex reddish-brown compounds, which create the tea's characteristic color and robust, malty flavor. The vanilla bean, the source of the world's most popular flavor, is the fruit of a tropical orchid. The plant, Vanilla planifolia, is a climbing vine, and it is the only orchid out of more than 25,000 species that is cultivated for food. Its pollination is a story of human intervention. In its native Mexico, the flower is pollinated by a specific tiny bee. When the plant was transported to other tropical regions around the world, its pollinator was left behind. The flower, which blooms for only a few hours on a single morning, remains sterile. For centuries, this mystery baffled cultivators until, in 1841, a 12-year-old enslaved boy named Edmund Albius, on the island of Réunion, developed a meticulous technique for hand-pollinating each flower using a small pointed stick. This method is still the only way to commercially produce vanilla today, a delicate human-assisted process. The domestication of wheat was a pivotal event that marked the dawn of human agriculture and civilization. It began over 10,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent of the Middle East, with wild grasses like einkorn and emmer. These wild grains had a critical flaw for any aspiring farmer. Their seed heads were brittle, designed to shatter upon ripening to scatter their seeds. Early humans, however, would have noticed that a few rare mutant plants had tougher seed heads that held onto their grain. These were the easiest to harvest, as the seeds stayed on the stalk. By selectively gathering and planting the seeds from these non-shattering plants, humans unconsciously selected for this new trait. This simple, patient act of selection created the first domestic wheat, a plant that relied on humans to spread its seed, and in turn, a plant that could reliably feed the first cities. The jumping cholla is a cactus of the Sonoran Desert that is infamous for its seemingly aggressive method of propagation. While it does not actually jump, it has an incredibly effective defense and dispersal strategy. Its stems are covered in segments that are only loosely attached, and each segment is densely armed with barbed spines. The slightest touch from a passing animal, or even a strong gust of wind, is enough to detach a segment. The barbs on the spines are like tiny fishhooks, and they lodge instantly and deeply into skin or fur. The animal's reflexive, painful attempt to shake it off only serves to break the segment into more pieces, spreading them further. This ensures the cactus defends itself while also hitching a ride, a painful but brilliant way to plant new colonies far from the parent. The strangler fig begins its life as a seemingly innocent seed, often deposited by a bird or monkey onto the branch of a host tree high in the tropical canopy. From this perch, the young fig sends down a single, slender root. This root journeys down the trunk of the host, eventually finding the soil. Once anchored, the fig's life accelerates. It sends up a leafy vine that competes with the host for sunlight, and it sends down many more aerial roots. These roots thicken, wrap around the host's trunk, and fuse together, creating a dense woody lattice. Over decades, this lattice completely encases the host tree. The fig's own canopy overshadows the host's leaves, starving it of light, while its root system strangles the host's trunk and outcompetes it for water. Eventually, the host tree dies and rots away, leaving the strangler fig standing alone, a hollow, pillar-like tree that took the shape of its vanquished support. The common dandelion is a master of dispersal, using a feathery, sophisticated structure to ride the wind. The familiar puffball seed head is a collection of tiny individual fruits. Each fruit, which contains a single seed, is attached to a long, thin stalk, which in turn is topped by a parachute-like tuft of fine, white bristles called a pappus. This structure is a marvel of aerodynamics. Research has shown that this pappus does not just act like a simple parachute. It creates a special, stable ring of circulating air, a vortex just above it as it travels. This vortex dramatically increases the amount of drag, allowing the seed to stay airborne for much longer and travel on much lighter breezes. It is an intricate, tiny, and highly effective piece of natural engineering, ensuring the dandelion's silent, patient conquest of lawns and meadows. The bark of the cinchona tree, native to the Andes, provided humanity with its first effective treatment for malaria. For centuries, the Quechua people of Peru had known of the bark's fever-reducing properties. In the 17th century, Jesuit missionaries learned of this and brought the powdered bark back to Europe. Its active ingredient, quinine, was eventually isolated. This compound was revolutionary, as it could both suppress and treat the malaria parasite, which was devastating populations worldwide. The demand for Jesuits' bark became so intense that it fueled exploration and even conflict, as it was the key to allowing European colonial expansion into tropical, malaria-ridden regions. The power held within the bark of this one mountain tree, a chemical it produced for its own defense, profoundly and irreversibly altered the course of human history. The sap of the sugar maple tree is a clear, thin liquid that holds the stored energy of the summer sun. In the cold transition from winter to spring, a unique pressure change happens within these trees. On warm, sunny days, the tree's internal pressure builds, and on freezing nights, a suction is created, drawing water up from the roots. This daily cycle of pressure and suction creates a run of sap. This sap is not the thick, sticky syrup we know, but a watery fluid containing only about 2% sugar. To create maple syrup, this sap must be collected and boiled down, a long, patient process of evaporation. It takes about 40 gallons, or roughly 150 liters, of this clear sap to be gently reduced by heat, releasing clouds of sweet steam, just to make 1 single gallon of the rich amber syrup. It is a gift of the thawing forest, a taste of concentrated sunlight stored in the tree's heartwood. The process of grafting allows 2 different plants to be fused into one, creating a single hybrid organism. This ancient agricultural technique is a form of living sculpture, a way of joining the strengths of 2 individuals, a cutting or scion, from a plant with desirable fruit, like a specific apple variety, is carefully attached to the root system or rootstock of another, more resilient plant. The key is to perfectly align the cambium layer, the thin, living layer just under the bark, of both pieces. If the graft is successful, the vascular tissues of the 2 plants will grow together, forming a permanent bond. The roots of the rootstock will supply water and nutrients to the scion, which will, in turn, grow and produce the fruit of its parent. This is why a single apple tree can be made to produce multiple different varieties, a living library of flavors on one trunk. The Marlborough tree, or Eucalyptus deglupta, is a tropical eucalyptus known as the rainbow gum, and it possesses the most vibrant and colorful bark in the world. This tree is a living, breathing painting. Its unique, multi-hued appearance is the result of its bark peeling off in patches at different times. As a section of the outer, brown bark is shed, it reveals a bright, luminous green layer of inner bark underneath. This newly exposed layer then begins its own slow chromatic journey. It ages over time, darkening and changing color, moving through a spectrum of blues, purples, and oranges, before finally settling into a deep reddish brown because the tree sheds in random, long strips. The trunk becomes a constantly changing vertical tapestry of all these colors at once, a living rainbow quietly reaching for the tropical sun. The spices we treasure, such as cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg, are often the protective armor of the plants that create them. These compounds, which we find so fragrant and appealing, are in fact potent chemical weapons. They are secondary metabolites, created by the plant not for its primary growth, but for its defense. Cinnamon, which is the dried inner bark of a tree, is rich in cinnamaldehyde, a compound that is toxic to insects and fungi. Cloves, the unopened flower buds of a tropical tree, are full of eugenol, a powerful antimicrobial agent. These spices are the plant's pharmacy, its way of protecting its most valuable parts, its bark, its seeds, its buds, from being eaten or decaying. When we use them in our kitchens, we are borrowing the plant's ancient, aromatic shield for our own purposes. The Amazon rainforest, the largest tropical rainforest on Earth, creates its own weather system through the breath of its trees. This vast green ocean of vegetation is in a constant state of transpiration, the process of releasing water vapor from the pores in its leaves. The sheer number of trees, estimated to be in the hundreds of billions, means that an astonishing amount of water is exhaled into the atmosphere every day. This creates a massive, humid blanket of air over the entire basin. This moisture rises, cools, and condenses, forming the region's characteristic heavy clouds. This process generates so much moisture that it forms flying rivers, vast atmospheric currents of water vapor that travel across the continent, bringing life-giving rain to regions thousands of miles away. The forest is not just a participant in the weather, it is its primary architect. The compass plant, or Silphium laciniatum, is a tall prairie wildflower that has a remarkable natural sense of direction. This plant, native to the central plains of North America, is known for its large, deeply cut leaves that align themselves in a very specific way. In open, sunny areas, the mature leaves of the plant orient themselves on a north-south axis. The broad, flat surfaces of the leaves face the east and west, while the thinner edges point north and south. This clever orientation is a strategy for survival in the harsh prairie environment. It allows the plant to capture the full, gentle light of the morning and late afternoon sun, while minimizing its exposure to the intense, scorching heat of the midday sun. This reduces water loss and prevents the leaves from overheating. A living, leafy compass that has found its perfect alignment with the sun's daily journey. The baobab trees of Africa and Australia are ancient, massive trees that have been called the tree of life, in part because of their extraordinary ability to store water. Living in hot, dry savannas, the baobab has a trunk that is almost unique in the plant world. It is not made of dense, hard wood, but of soft, fibrous, and spongy tissue. During the brief rainy season, this massive trunk swells, absorbing and storing thousands of gallons of water, with some estimates as high as 32,000 gallons, or about 120,000 litres. This makes the tree a vital living reservoir for the entire ecosystem. In the long dry season, the tree will slowly draw upon this internal wellspring, shedding its leaves to conserve moisture. Its swollen, bottle-like shape is a living monument to patience and the deep, quiet wisdom of holding on to what is essential. The shy crown phenomenon is a beautiful and mysterious behavior where the topmost canopies of some trees respectfully avoid touching each other. When you look up in certain forests, you will see a mesmerizing pattern in the sky, a network of channels and gaps outlining the edge of each individual tree's leaves. The trees create a canopy of interlocking puzzles that never quite meet. The exact reason for this crown shyness is still a gentle debate among scientists. It may be a form of pruning, where the wind causes the delicate outer branches to collide and break, creating this space. Or it may be a more deliberate, active response. The trees may be able to sense the far red light reflected from their neighbors, a signal that tells them to stop growing in that direction, to avoid a costly battle for the light. It is a quiet, natural diplomacy, a pattern of perfect, respectful spacing. The beautiful, trumpet-shaped flowers of the morning glory are programmed to live for only a single day. Their life is a brief, ephemeral performance. Perfectly synchronized with the sun, the flower bud remains tightly coiled through the night. Then, in the cool, pre-dawn light, it begins to unfurl, opening its vibrant face to greet the morning. The bloom remains open for just a few hours, a bright invitation to pollinators like hummingbirds and bees. But its beauty is fleeting. As the sun reaches its peak and the day's heat intensifies, the flower's life cycle rapidly comes to an end. The edges of the bloom begin to wilt and curl inward, and by the afternoon, the flower that was so vibrant at sunrise has withered away completely. It is a life lived in a single day, a burst of color that trusts the next dawn will bring a new bud to take its place. The relationship between the yucca plant and the yucca moth is one of the most intimate and inseparable partnerships in nature. Neither organism can survive without the other. The yucca plant's pale, bell-shaped flowers open only at night, and they produce a very specific, sticky pollen. The small, white yucca moth is the only creature that can pollinate them. The female moth flies to a flower and, using specialized mouthparts, gathers this pollen into a small ball. She then flies to a different yucca flower, and in a very deliberate act, she pushes this pollen ball deep into the flower's stigma, ensuring pollination. But before she leaves, she performs one more critical act. She lays a few of her own eggs in the flower's ovary. As the flower develops into a fruit, her larvae will hatch and feed on some of the developing seeds, but they always leave plenty behind to ensure the yucca's next generation. The rings of a petrified tree are a story of transformation, where wood has been turned into stone. This process, known as permineralization, is a slow geological miracle. When a tree dies and is rapidly buried by sediment, such as volcanic ash or mud, it is sealed away from the oxygen that would normally cause it to rot. Over millions of years, water rich in dissolved minerals, most often silica, seeps through this buried log. This mineral water flows into the empty spaces within the wood, and even into the individual cells themselves. Slowly, molecule by molecule, the original organic material of the wood is replaced by these minerals. The silica crystallizes, forming quartz, perfectly preserving the tree's original structure, from the grain of its wood to the precise, detailed chronology of its growth rings. It is a tree's ghost, rewritten in stone, a permanent record of a lifelong past. The seeds of the red mangrove begin their lives by germinating while they are still attached to the parent tree. These plants, which form dense, tangled forests on tropical coastlines, have a unique reproductive strategy. They are viviparous, meaning they give live birth. After pollination, the seed does not fall from the tree. Instead, it sprouts, growing into a long, green, spear-like seedling called a propagule, which can be over a foot long or about 30 centimeters. This propagule hangs from the branch, sometimes for months, drawing nutrients from its parent. When it is mature, it drops from the tree. If it lands in the soft, shallow mud below, it may plant itself immediately. If it falls into the water, it is buoyant and can float horizontally for weeks or even months, traveling to a new shore, where it will eventually turn vertically and strike roots as soon as it finds suitable ground. The living stones, or lithops, are a genus of succulent plants from southern Africa that have mastered the art of camouflage. These tiny plants have evolved to perfectly mimic the appearance of the pebbles and gravel in their arid, rocky environment. This camouflage, known as crypsis, is their primary defense against being eaten by thirsty animals. What appears to be the plant is actually a pair of thick, fleshy, fused leaves, which are mostly buried underground. The very top surface of the leaves is flattened and translucent, acting as a window. This window allows sunlight to penetrate deep into the leaf, reaching the chlorophyll-rich tissues hidden safely below the soil surface. The plant is a subterranean leaf, a living window in the ground that only breaks its disguise when it sends up a surprisingly bright, daisy-like flower from the fissure between its two stone-like leaves. The great banyan tree is not a single tree, but a forest in progress, an organism that can grow to cover enormous areas. The banyan, a species of fig, begins its life on another tree, much like a strangler fig. But its most defining feature is its ability to send down thousands of prop roots from its horizontal branches. These aerial roots hang in the air, slowly growing downward. When one of these roots touches the ground, it thickens, anchors itself, and becomes a new, woody, pillar-like trunk. This new trunk provides support and draws up water and nutrients, allowing the banyan to send its branches ever further outward, where they will, in turn, send down more prop roots. Over centuries, this process allows a single banyan tree to become a vast, labyrinthine grove, a single, interconnected canopy supported by 1,000 pillars, a living, walking cathedral of a tree. The bullhorn acacia tree of Central America lives in a mandatory, cooperative partnership with a species of stinging ant. The tree provides a complete and perfect home for the ant colony. Its large, hollow, horn-shaped thorns provide fortified, living barracks for the ants to live inside. The tree also provides all their food. It secretes a sweet nectar from special glands on its leaves, and it produces small, protein-rich, orange-colored nubs on its leaf tips, called Beltian bodies, which are a perfect food source. In exchange for this room and board, the ants provide the tree with a ferocious 24-hour security force. They swarm and attack any herbivore, from a caterpillar to a cow, that dares to touch the leaves. They will even clear away any competing vines or seedlings that sprout near the acacia's base, ensuring their host home has no competition. The air in a pine forest is so fresh and distinct because the trees are constantly releasing antimicrobial compounds into the atmosphere. These chemicals, called phytoncides, are part of the pine tree's sophisticated immune system. They are volatile organic compounds that protect the tree from harmful fungi, bacteria, and insects. When we walk through a conifer forest, we are breathing in these airborne defenses. This is why the forest floor is often so clear of decay. The soil and air are saturated with these preserving chemicals. This chemical cloud is not only beneficial for the trees, but also for the other life in the forest, including humans, as breathing in these compounds can have a calming effect and support immune function. The scent of pine is the scent of the forest's own, ancient, invisible shield of health. The lotus flower is a profound symbol of purity in many cultures because of its remarkable ability to remain clean in the muddy waters it calls home. The plant's leaves and petals possess a property known as ultrahydrophobicity, or the lotus effect. The surface of the leaf, which appears smooth to our eyes, is actually covered in a dense forest of microscopic waxy bumps. When a water droplet lands on this surface, it cannot spread out and wet the leaf. Instead, it beads up into a near-perfect sphere, as if it is floating on a bed of nails. As these droplets roll off the leaf, they pick up and carry away any particles of dust, dirt, or mud. The plant cleans itself with every drop of rain, a perfect, natural, and passive technology that ensures it remains pristine, its face always ready to greet the sun. The sap of the dragon's blood tree, found on the island of Socotra off the coast of Yemen, is a startling, deep red resin. This unique and ancient tree has a dense, upturned, umbrella-shaped canopy, a form perfectly evolved to capture moisture from the island's coastal mists. When the tree's bark is cut or wounded, it bleeds this thick, crimson sap. This resin is the tree's healing mechanism, a potent liquid bandage. It is rich in compounds that are antiseptic and antifungal, and it quickly dries to form a hard, protective seal over the wound, preventing infection and deterring insects. For millennia, this resin, known as dragon's blood, was sought by ancient civilizations, from the Romans to the Chinese, who used it as a priceless pigment for dye, a varnish, and a powerful medicinal balm. It is the tree's lifeblood, a scarlet shield that it has shared with the world. The tobacco plant has a dark, predatory secret. It can enlist the help of wasps to defend itself. When a caterpillar, like a hornworm, begins to chew on a tobacco leaf, the plant does more than just produce nicotine. The saliva of the caterpillar triggers a specific, complex chemical response. The plant releases a unique blend of volatile organic compounds into the air, a specific chemical SOS. This perfume is a call for help, and it is answered by a tiny parasitic wasp. The wasp is drawn by this signal, knowing it means a meal is available for its young. It finds the caterpillar, stings it, and injects its eggs inside the caterpillar's body. The wasp larvae then hatch and eat the caterpillar from the inside out. The plant, in essence, has called in a tiny flying assassin to surgically remove its enemy. The caffeine in a coffee plant's seeds and leaves is not a gift, but a sophisticated natural insecticide. The coffee plant, a small shrub native to the forests of Ethiopia, evolved this powerful compound for its own protection. In the plant's leaves, caffeine acts as a neurotoxin, deterring and paralyzing insects that try to feed on them. When the leaves fall, the caffeine leaches into the soil, creating an environment where the seeds of competing plants cannot easily germinate, giving the young coffee seedlings a chance to thrive. The The plant even adds a small, rewarding dose of caffeine to its nectar, a psychoactive treat that may help pollinators, like bees, to remember that specific flower and return to it. It is a plant that has mastered chemical defense, a shield that humans have instead embraced as a treasured ritual. The vibrant, shifting colors of a hydrangea flower are a living piece of chemistry, a direct expression of the soil it lives in. The plant's blooms act as a natural litmus test. The color is not determined by the plant's genetics alone, but by the availability of a single element, aluminum. In acidic soil with a low pH, aluminum is soluble and easily absorbed by the plant's roots. This aluminum interacts with the flower's pigment, delphinidin, to produce the striking deep blues. In alkaline soil with a high pH, the aluminum is locked in the earth, unavailable to the plant. Without it, the same delphinidin pigment expresses itself as a soft, gentle pink, or even a deep red. A gardener, by adding lime to sweeten the soil or sulfur to acidify it, can become a painter, gently guiding the flower's final hue. The flooded rice paddy is a remarkable human-made ecosystem, a perfect collaboration between people and a single species of grass. For thousands of years, farmers have known that growing rice, Oryza sativa, in fields submerged under a few inches of water, or a few centimeters, is the key to its success. This layer of water is not just for hydration, it is a perfect, non-chemical herbicide, suppressing the growth of nearly all other weeds that would compete with the rice. The rice plant is uniquely adapted, with hollow stems that act like snorkels, carrying air from the surface down to its submerged roots. Often, these paddies are co-cultured with a small floating fern called a zolla, which harbors a bacterium that fixes nitrogen from the air, providing a constant, free, and living fertilizer for the crop. It is an ancient, balanced, and sustainable world. The lichens that cling to desert rocks are some of the most patient and slow-growing organisms on Earth. In the harsh, dry environment of a desert, these composite beings of fungi and algae enter a state of complete dormancy, becoming brittle and seemingly lifeless, sometimes for years. They wait for the one thing they need: moisture. When the morning fog rolls in or a rare rain shower passes, they rehydrate almost instantly, turning green and pliable as the algae begins to photosynthesize. This window of life is short, and so their growth is measured not in days, but in centuries. Some species of map lichen grow as slowly as 1 millimeter, or less than 4/100ths of an inch, every 100 years. To look at a large patch of desert lichen is to look at a being that may be thousands of years old, a silent, colorful chronicle of time. The towering kapok tree of the tropics produces a fruit that bursts with a cloud of silky, cotton-like fiber. This fiber, which cradles the tree's dark seeds, is a masterpiece of natural design. Each individual strand is a hollow, waxy tube, making it incredibly buoyant and completely resistant to water. Unlike cotton, these fibers are too smooth, short, and brittle to be easily spun into thread. But this very quality made them invaluable for another purpose. For much of human history, this silk cotton was the preferred stuffing for life vests and flotation devices, a natural, lightweight material that could support many times its own weight in water. The wind of a tree's original design also uses this buoyant fiber as a sail, carrying the kapok seeds on the tropical breeze to find new, distant places to grow. The most expensive spice in the world, saffron, is nothing more than a tiny, delicate part of a flower, harvested by hand. This precious crimson gold spice comes from the crocus sativus, a small purple autumn blooming crocus. Each flower produces only 3 stigmas, the long, thin, female reproductive parts, which are the threads of saffron. These stigmas must be plucked by hand from the flower's center on the morning it blooms, a process of incredible delicacy. It takes an astonishing number of flowers, upwards of 75,000, to produce a single pound, or about 450 grams, of dried saffron. The spice's intense honey-like aroma, brilliant color, and profound flavor are the result of this patient, painstaking harvest. It is the concentrated, fragile essence of a flower, a thread of crimson autumn. The agave, or century plant, is a monument to a single, dramatic, and final act of flowering. This desert succulent, known for its formidable rosette of thick, spiked leaves, is a master of patience, following a life strategy known as monocarpic. For most of its life, which may be 10, 30, or even 50 years, the agave does nothing but gather sunlight and store energy in its massive heart. It waits for a signal known only to itself. Then, it begins its final spectacular transformation. It sends up a colossal flower stalk, or mast, that can grow up to 25 feet, or about 8 meters, in a matter of weeks. This stalk bursts into a candelabra of yellow flowers. This one great reproductive effort consumes all of the plant's stored energy, and after its seeds are set, the great agave, having fulfilled its purpose, withers and dies. The bark of the cork oak tree is a renewable, fire-resistant shield that the tree allows us to borrow. Native to the Mediterranean, this remarkable oak tree has an outer bark that is uniquely thick, buoyant, and spongy. This bark, the cork, is composed of cells that are mostly empty air, and their walls are impregnated with a waxy substance called suberin, making them waterproof and incredibly fire retardant. In its native landscape, this thick armor allows the tree to survive the frequent, low-intensity forest fires. What is most magical is that this bark can be harvested without harming the tree. A skilled harvester strips this outer layer, leaving the inner, living bark intact. The tree, unharmed, simply begins the patient, 9-year process of growing a new, thick coat of this remarkable, sustainable, and protective material. The painful, itchy rash from poison ivy is not an act of aggression by the plant, but a profound overreaction by our own immune system. The plant, a native North American vine, is covered in an oily, invisible resin called urushiol. This compound is not a poison. By itself, it is harmless. But when it touches our skin, this oil seeps in and chemically bonds with our skin's own proteins. Our immune system's sentinel cells do not recognize this new, combined shape. They mistakenly identify our own skin cells as a dangerous foreign invader, flagging them for destruction. The itching, blistering, and swelling we experience is the friendly fire of our own defenses, a delayed and misplaced allergic reaction to a plant that is only trying to defend itself from being eaten, a silent case of mistaken identity. Mistletoe is a plant that lives a life of beautiful, gentle theft, a hemiparasite that bridges the gap between independence and reliance. We often see it as a festive decoration, a cluster of green in a winter bare tree. That green is a clue. Mistletoe has its own chlorophyll, so it can perform photosynthesis and make its own sugar. It is not a complete parasite. However, it lacks true roots. Instead, it sinks a specialized structure, the haustorium, deep into the branch of its host tree. This root taps directly into the host's vascular system, its xylem, and from it, the mistletoe steals all the water and raw minerals it needs. The plant's sticky white berries are carried by birds, who wipe the seeds onto new branches, ensuring this skybound thief can find a new home, a life of partial thievery high in the forest canopy. The magic of popcorn is a tiny, contained steam explosion, a marvel of physics hidden inside a single kernel. Each kernel of popcorn is a seed, containing a small amount of water and a core of soft starch, all encased in a very hard, moisture-proof outer shell, or hull. When the kernel is heated, that tiny trapped droplet of water turns into steam. As the temperature rises, the steam expands, building up immense pressure inside the tiny, sealed vessel. When the pressure becomes too great for the hull to contain, at around 355 degrees Fahrenheit, or 180 degrees Celsius, the kernel erupts. The hot, pressurized steam bursts out, and the soft starch inside instantly inflates and turns inside out, cooling in a fraction of a second into the familiar, fluffy, white shape. It is a miniature, culinary explosion, a single seed sudden, starchy transformation. The castor bean plant, often grown as a striking ornamental for its large, tropical leaves, hides a profound and dangerous secret in its seeds. This plant produces the seeds from which we get beneficial castor oil. However, these seeds also contain ricin, one of the most potent and deadly natural toxins known. Ricin is a type of protein known as a ribosome inactivating protein. Its function is terrifyingly simple. It enters a cell and breaks its ribosomes, the tiny factories that build all the other proteins the cell needs to live. A single ricin molecule can destroy thousands of ribosomes per minute, causing the cell to die. The castor oil we use is safe because this deadly protein is not oil-soluble and is left behind in the seed pulp. It is a stark reminder of the potent, hidden chemistry that plants hold in reserve. The faint, eerie, greenish glow that sometimes emanates from rotting wood on a dark forest floor is known as foxfire. This cold, ghostly light is not from a spirit, but from a living organism, the mycelium of certain species of fungi, most notably the honey fungus. This is bioluminescence, the same chemical magic used by fireflies and deep-sea creatures. The fungus's branching, thread-like network, which it uses to digest the decaying wood, produces a pigment called luciferin and an enzyme called luciferase. When these two combine with oxygen, they release energy in the form of a steady, pale, greenish light. The exact purpose for this glow is a gentle mystery. It may be a warning to creatures that would eat it, or perhaps it is a beacon to attract insects that can help spread its spores. It is the quiet, living light of decay. The flower of the common barberry shrub is armed with a tiny, high-speed mechanical trap to ensure its pollination. Inside the small, yellow flower, the stamens, the structures that hold the pollen, are highly sensitive to touch. They lie in wait, bent back against the petals. When a bee, searching for nectar, probes the base of the flower, its head or leg inevitably touches the base of one of these stamens. This touch triggers an immediate, reflexive response. The stamen, which is under tension, snaps forward in an instant, like a tiny catapult. It springs inward, striking the bee's body and dusting it with a small cloud of yellow pollen. This rapid, precise, and sensitive movement ensures that the visiting insect cannot leave without being covered, a beautiful, instantaneous, and forceful guarantee of the flower's future. The familiar sweetness of a strawberry is just one part of its strategy for survival. The plant's true ambition is revealed in its runners. Strawberries are masters of vegetative propagation. a way of conquering territory by making perfect copies of themselves. From the base of the parent plant, they send out long, leafless stems called stolons, or runners. These runners creep horizontally across the surface of the ground. At intervals along the runner, small nodes form. When one of these nodes settles on a patch of bare soil, it sprouts, sending down its own roots to anchor itself and sending up a new crown of leaves. This new daughter plant is a perfect genetic clone of its mother. It is the plant's way of walking, a quiet, leafy march that allows a single strawberry to quickly become a dense, interconnected, and fruitful patch. The silent upward journey of water from a tree's roots to its highest leaves, sometimes hundreds of feet in the air, is a feat of passive, solar-powered physics. Trees do not pump water, they pull it. This process is driven by the sun through a mechanism called cohesion tension. Water evaporating from the leaf pores in a process called transpiration creates a gentle, continuous pull. Water molecules themselves are sticky, clinging to each other, cohesion, and to the walls of the tree's narrow internal pipes, the xylem, adhesion. This creates an unbroken, chain-like column of water, stretching from the highest leaf all the way down to the finest root. As one molecule evaporates from a leaf, it pulls the entire chain up, a magnificent, silent, hydraulic system powered by the simple warmth of the sun, lifting rivers of water into the sky. The horsetail plant is a living fossil, a humble green survivor from a lost world. This seemingly simple, jointed plant, often found in damp, sandy soils, is the last living member of the Equisetum family, a group of plants that once dominated the understory of the vast, ancient forests of the Carnivorous period. Over 300 million years ago, in that prehistoric world, some of its relatives grew as large as trees, reaching 100 feet or 30 meters into the sky. Today's horsetails are small, but they retain their ancient design. They reproduce not with flowers, but with spores, and their stems are hollow and rough to the touch. This roughness comes from the silica, the main component of sand, which the plant pulls from the soil. Early pioneers knew this and called it scouring rush, using its abrasive stems to clean their pots and pans. The latex that we harvest from the rubber tree, Hevea brasiliensis, is not the tree's sap, but its automated liquid defense system. The true sap, which carries nutrients, flows deeper inside the tree. This white milky latex is held in its own separate specialized vessels in the bark. When an insect bores into the tree or an animal wounds the bark, these vessels are broken and the latex flows out. Upon contact with the air, it begins to coagulate, thickening into a sticky, gummy plug. This seals the wound, preventing infection, while also gumming up the mouthparts of any attacking insect, a perfect, immediate bandage. The process of tapping is the human art of making a precise, careful cut, just deep enough to open these latex vessels without harming the tree's living, deeper layers, borrowing its remarkable healing fluid. The summer snow that drifts from cottonwood trees is not pollen, but a beautiful airborne fleet of seeds. The cottonwood's pollen is released much earlier in the spring, a fine, invisible dust. The iconic, fluffy white cotton that fills the air weeks later is the tree's dispersal mechanism. It comes only from the female trees, which, after being pollinated, produce small seed capsules. These capsules split open to release thousands of tiny, dark seeds, each one attached to a tuft of long, silky, white hairs. This fluff acts as a perfect sail, allowing the seed to be lifted by the wind and float for miles. It is also buoyant, designed to ride on the surface of rivers, which often border the tree's preferred habitat. This summer snowstorm is a quiet, massive, and hopeful exodus, each white speck carrying the genetic blueprint for a new giant tree. White sage is a plant of the arid American Southwest whose silvery white leaves hold a deep, aromatic, and spiritual significance. This shrub, Salvia apiana, is perfectly adapted to its dry, sun-baked home. Its pale, whitish leaves are covered in fine, dense hairs, which reflect the harsh sunlight and help to conserve precious water. These leaves are also rich in fragrant, cleansing oils and resins. For centuries, this plant has been a sacred medicine for many indigenous tribes of the region. The practice of smudging involves burning the dried leaves, either alone or in a bundle. The fragrant, thick smoke is not a perfume, but a ritual of purification, used to cleanse a person, a space, or a ceremonial object, a way of clearing the air and inviting a sense of peace and clarity. The stinging nettle, a plant most people avoid, is covered in a defense mechanism of microscopic living needles. The stems and leaves are lined with tiny, hollow hairs called trichomes, which are made of silica, the same material as glass. The tip of each hair is a tiny bulb that breaks off with the slightest touch, leaving a sharp, angled point. This point easily penetrates the skin, and the hollow hair, acting like a hypodermic needle, injects a complex cocktail of chemicals. This venom includes compounds like histamine, which causes inflammation and itching, and acetylcholine, which creates a burning sensation. This immediate, painful, and memorable response is a brilliant defense, a do-not-touch warning that is chemically enforced, teaching any herbivore to remember the plant and leave its leaves alone. The fruit we call a fig is not a fruit in the typical sense. It is a hidden, inward-facing garden of flowers. The fleshy, pear-shaped structure we eat is an enclosed, hollow stem, called a syconium, with a tiny, single opening at the far end. Inside this dark, protected chamber, hundreds of tiny, individual male and female flowers bloom, completely hidden from the outside world. This unique structure means the fig cannot be pollinated by the wind or by a passing bee. It relies on a single, tiny, specialized insect, the fig wasp. A female fig wasp, so small she can barely be seen, crawls through the tiny opening, often losing her wings in the process. Once inside, she pollinates the hidden flowers and lays her eggs, a final act that ensures the life of both her offspring and the fig's future seeds. The common, humble clover, often found in lawns, has the ability to fix nitrogen, a process that makes it a powerful, living fertilizer. The air all around us is nearly 80% nitrogen gas, but in this form, it is completely unusable to plants. Clover, like other members of the legume family, has a solution. It forms a symbiotic partnership with a specific bacteria called rhizobia. The clover grows small, round nodules on its roots, providing a safe, oxygen-free home for these bacteria. In return, the bacteria perform a chemical miracle. They absorb the unusable nitrogen gas from the air and fix it, converting it into ammonia and other nitrogen compounds that the plant can easily absorb as food. When the clover dies, this rich store of nitrogen is released into the soil, nourishing all the grasses and plants that grow around it. The seeds of some pine trees, particularly the lodgepole pine, are locked in a deep patience, waiting for the touch of fire. These trees produce cones that are serotinous, meaning they are sealed shut by a tough, hard resin. These cones can hang on the tree's branches for years, even decades, holding their seeds in a state of suspended animation. They are waiting for a very specific trigger, the intense passing heat of a forest fire. When a fire sweeps through the forest, the heat, often exceeding 122 degrees Fahrenheit or 50 degrees Celsius, melts this resinous seal. The cone, now unbound, opens up. In the days and weeks after the fire, these cones drop their thousands of seeds onto a forest floor that is now perfect for them, cleared of all competition and enriched by the nutrient-rich ash. It is a life that begins in the flames. The beautiful golden-orange color of a carrot is the result of a single powerful pigment called beta-carotene. This compound, which the carrot produces in enormous quantities in its taproot, is a precursor to vitamin A, essential for human health. But the carrot did not evolve this color for us. Wild carrots have thin, pale, and often bitter roots. The thick, sweet, orange carrot we know today is a product of human hands and agricultural selection. It is believed to have been first domesticated in the regions of Afghanistan and Persia, where carrots were originally purple and yellow. A genetic mutation, favored by Dutch farmers in the 16th and 17th centuries, led to the development of the vibrant orange varieties. They cultivated this new, sweeter root, a man-made storehouse of a pigment that was once just a minor part of the plant's chemistry. The coconut crab, the largest land-living arthropod, has a relationship with the coconut that is one of strength and opportunity. These enormous, powerful crabs, which can weigh up to 9 pounds or 4 kilograms, are not, as legend suggests, often found climbing trees to snip coconuts. They are primarily scavengers, and the coconut is a favorite, high-energy food. Their most remarkable adaptation is their claws, which they use to tear away the thick, fibrous husk of fallen coconuts. Once the husk is gone, they use their sharp, strong legs to puncture one of the coconut's 3 eyes, the softer germination pores, and then they can crack the hard shell open to get at the rich, fatty meat inside. While they are skilled climbers, they are more often found on the ground, the patient, armored beneficiaries of the bounty the palm trees drop for them. The bright yellow, ray-like petals of a sunflower are not petals at all, but hundreds of individual tiny flowers, all clustered together in a perfect, geometric head. This structure, a composite flower head, is a masterpiece of efficiency. What we see as the center of the sunflower is a dense disk of tiny, complete, fertile flowers that will each produce a seed. What we see as the outer petals are actually a ring of large, sterile, and brightly colored ray flowers. Their entire purpose is to act as a single, large, attractive billboard, a vibrant yellow sign that shouts to pollinators like bees from a great distance, "Nectar is here." This combined inflorescence ensures maximum visibility, and by clustering so many flowers together, guarantees that a single bee's visit is incredibly efficient, pollinating hundreds of future seeds at once. The poinsettia, a plant synonymous with winter holidays, gets its festive color not from its flowers, but from its leaves. The actual flowers of the poinsettia are the tiny, unassuming yellow and green structures found in the very center of the display. They are small, inconspicuous, and produce very little nectar. To attract pollinators in its native Mexico, the plant evolved a brilliant visual trick. In the shorter, darker days of winter, the plant's uppermost leaves, called bracts, undergo a dramatic transformation. Triggered by the long nights, they stop producing green chlorophyll and begin flooding their cells with vibrant red pigments. they become a spectacular crimson advertisement, a false flower designed to lure in birds and insects, guiding them to the tiny true flowers hidden in their center. It is a beautiful leafy illusion. The air we breathe today, rich in oxygen, is a direct living consequence of a single, tiny, and ancient organism, cyanobacteria. Billions of years ago, the Earth's atmosphere was a toxic, oxygen-free mix of methane and carbon dioxide. Life was simple, and it did not breathe. Then, around 3.5 billion years ago, these microscopic blue-green bacteria, known as cyanobacteria, evolved a revolutionary trick. They learned to harness the sun, absorbing water and carbon dioxide, and, through photosynthesis, releasing oxygen as a waste product. For 1 billion years, this waste built up, first in the oceans and then, catastrophically, in the air. This great oxidation event was a poison to most other life, but it paved the way for the complex oxygen-breathing life forms like us that would one day inherit the planet. They are the patient, ancient architects of our very breath. The common backyard mushroom is not a plant at all, but the temporary, visible, reproductive structure of a much larger hidden organism. The main body of the fungus is the mycelium, a vast, intricate, web-like network of microscopic threads that spreads through the soil or decaying wood. This network is the true, living, feeding body of the fungus. When conditions are right, often after a cool rain, this hidden network will consolidate its energy and send up a fruiting body, which is the mushroom we see. The mushroom's sole purpose is to mature, produce, and release its spores, the microscopic seeds of the fungus, which are then carried on the wind to find new homes. The mushroom is just a brief, elegant, and fleeting flower, the visible expression of a vast, invisible kingdom that lives its life in the dark, quiet earth. The common lawn daisy is a small, cheerful survivor that uses its simple appearance as a clever defense. This small flower, a composite like the sunflower, is not just one bloom, but many. The yellow eye is a cluster of tiny, fertile disc flowers, and each white petal is its own separate sterile ray flower. This composite structure makes it robust, but its true survival trick is in its growth habit. The daisy's leaves grow in a flat, low-lying circle called a basal rosette, pressing themselves close to the ground. When a lawnmower passes over, the leaves, which are the plant's essential food factories, are too low to be cut. The mower only snips the flower stem, which is a small loss. The plant, its leaves safe, can easily and quickly send up a new flower, a humble and brilliant strategy for thriving in a world of constant grazing. The quiver tree, or cocoboom, is not a true tree, but a giant, branching aloe plant that has mastered the art of survival in the arid landscapes of southern Africa. Its name comes from the Sand People, who traditionally hollowed out its light, fibrous, and tubular branches to create quivers for their poison-tipped arrows. The plant's most striking adaptation is its smooth, whitish-grey bark, which is covered in a fine reflective powder. This pale skin acts as a natural sunblock, reflecting the intense desert sun and keeping the plant's internal, water-filled tissues cool. The tree's crown is a dense, high rosette of fleshy, succulent leaves, a design that minimizes the surface area exposed to the sun's hottest rays, a living, powdery white sculpture of perfect arid adaptation. The delicate, silvery threads of Spanish moss that drape from southern oaks are not a moss at all, but a flowering plant in the bromeliad family, a cousin of the pineapple, and air plants. This plant, Tillandsia usneoides, is a true epiphyte, meaning it is not a parasite. It does not steal anything from the tree it hangs on. It simply uses the branches as a perch. It has no roots. Its long, grey-green stems are covered in tiny, cup-like silver scales. These scales are its lifeline, absorbing all the water and nutrients it needs directly from the air, from rain, mist, and the dust that floats on the breeze. Its tiny, inconspicuous green flowers are pollinated by the wind, and its seeds are feathery, designed to float through the air and snag on the bark of a new host, beginning the life of a new, hanging, aerial garden. The spice we call black pepper is the dried, unripened fruit of a tropical flowering vine. The plant, Piper nigrum, is a woody climber that grows on tall trees or trellises. It produces long, drooping spikes, or catkins, which become densely packed with small, round fruits called drupes. These fruits are harvested at different stages of ripeness to create the different types of pepper. For black pepper, the drupes are picked while they are still green and unripe. They are then left to ferment slightly and are dried in the sun. As they dry, the outer layer of the fruit shrivels, darkens, and hardens around the inner seed, becoming the familiar, wrinkled, black peppercorn. The heat of the pepper comes from piperine, a chemical compound concentrated in the skin and seed, a plant's pungent defense against being eaten. The ice plant, a common succulent ground cover, has a unique and glistening defense against drought and sun. The leaves and stems of this plant are covered in what appear to be tiny, frozen dewdrops or ice crystals. These crystals are actually specialized, transparent, bladder-like cells on the plant's skin. These cells are filled with water. They act as a living, liquid-filled shield. They reflect a portion of the harsh sunlight, preventing the plant's leaves from overheating. More importantly, they are tiny, personal reservoirs. In times of drought, the plant can slowly draw upon the water stored in these external bladder cells, using this surface supply before it has to tap into the precious water stored deep within its leaves. It wears its water on the outside, a shimmering living coat of armor. The corpse-sucking plant, Monotropa uniflora, also known as the ghost pipe, is a plant that has abandoned the sun and lives a life of pure theft. This ethereal, waxy white plant, which emerges like a pale, hunched-over ghost from the dark, leaf-littered forest floor, has no chlorophyll, the green pigment for photosynthesis. It cannot make its own food. Instead of turning to the sun, it has become a master mycoheterotroph. It taps into the vast underground fungal network that connects the roots of the nearby green photosynthesizing trees. It is a parasite of a parasite. It steals the sugars and nutrients that the fungus, in turn, has received from the roots of the trees. It is a plant that lives entirely in the shadows, a pale, beautiful thief that has found a way to drink the captured sunlight of another. The vibrant purple-red juice of a beet is due to a unique, powerful, and very stable class of pigments called betalains. Most other red and purple plants, like berries and red cabbage, get their color from anthocyanin pigments. Beets, however, evolve their own, different, nitrogen-rich pigment. This color is so potent that it has been used as a dye for centuries, and it is also a powerful antioxidant. But this pigment is also water-soluble and leaks easily. When a beet is cut, it bleeds, and this is the reason for the telltale deep crimson stain. These pigments are the plant's way of protecting itself. But for the beet, they are also a sign of its lineage, a unique chemical signature that separates it from the rest of the plant kingdom's red and purple spectrum. It is a plant that paints the world in its own distinct and earthy shade of crimson. The common prickly pineapple is not a single fruit, but a complex, fused collection of many individual berries. The pineapple plant, a tropical bromeliad, produces a flowering stalk, or inflorescence, that is a dense, tight spiral of 100 to 200 individual flowers. Each of these purple flowers, if pollinated, would produce a small, separate berry. However, in the cultivated pineapple, these flowers are not pollinated. Instead, they grow and swell together, their individual fleshy berries fusing with each other, and with the central fibrous stalk, the eyes we see on the tough outer rind are the remnants of each of these individual flowers. The entire sweet, juicy fruit is a magnificent cooperative structure, a whole community of flowers that have joined together to become one single, large and impressive fruit. The majestic, flowering spikes of the ohia lehua tree are often the very first life to reclaim the cooling, black, volcanic rock of a new lava flow in Hawaii. This tree is a sacred keystone species, a pioneer of profound resilience. Its tiny, feathery seeds are carried by the wind and can find purchase in the smallest, barren cracks of the new, sterile rock. The young seedling is a testament to patience, slowly sending down roots, breaking down the rock, and creating the first small pockets of soil. Its brilliant, fiery red, pom-pom-like flowers are a vital source of nectar for native birds. According to Hawaiian legend, the ohia tree and the lehua blossom are two lovers, and if you pick a lehua flower, you are separating them, and the sky will fill with the rain of their tears. It is a tree born of fire, rock, and the sky's deep, gentle sorrow. And so, our journey through the quiet, breathing world of plants comes to a gentle close. We have drifted through a world that moves on a different timescale, a kingdom of profound patience and silent, complex chemistry. We have seen the seed that holds its breath for millennia, the leaf that follows the sun, and the root that senses the pull of the earth. These are not passive beings, but active, intelligent survivors, communicating in a language of scent and shadow, and building the very foundation of the world with nothing but sunlight, water, and time. From the invisible, ocean-breathing phytoplankton to the ancient bristlecone pines that watch the centuries pass, the story of plants is the story of all life. They are the armor of the earth, the givers of air, and the quiet architects of our shared reality. Their roots are woven into the soil, just as their existence is woven into our own, a constant, green, and gentle presence that asks for nothing but gives everything. If you happen to still be awake, that's perfectly all right. You can simply lie back, let the music keep flowing in the background, and drift in and out of the story at your own pace. But if your eyes are heavy, let the stories of plants and the gentle music carry you softly into rest. Sleep well. Good night.